What is up, review and preview fans? It has been a long time, but we are back for this exclusive New York Mets post-mortem, basically where we recap the good, the bad, and the ugly from the 2025 season. My name is Tom Scabetta, joined alongside my right-hand man, James Montefusco. James, it's good to be back. We just did a live show for Big Blue Avenue. Double dipping this week. I know nowadays we have busier lives, so we do videos a little bit more fewer and far between for review and preview, but we're really excited to get this one up. And without further ado, let's get into this. What a season. What a season.
Yeah.
We started the year with the best record in the majors at 45-24 in the middle of June and missed the playoffs on a payroll of $342 million. Are you surprised?
If you asked me
Honestly.
in June to miss the playoffs with that record and that payroll, no. But after June, if you ask me that same question, if you want my answer now, yes. I am surprised that we missed the playoffs, especially with the talent we even had on this roster. In the lineup, the pitching was but you're one of the richest teams in baseball and not playing in October where you should be playing / also the new owners, like we're almost making, not that I'm saying, you say you're making the playoffs every year, fine, but we hit such high expectations last year and bring in a guy like Soto and whatnot and make a run 45-24 where we should hit well north of 100 games, I feel like, to then fall flat and win 80 somewhat games.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
I'll be honest with you. I was so disgusted. I wasn't even really paying attention to the last series of the weekend. I just know we lost 2 out of 3 to the Marlins. I think we finished 83-79. But let me
Something like that. Let's
double
double
check.
check.
Yeah, we both got to double check here. Oh God! So we finished in second place, 83-79. Yep.
83. Yeah. That again. If you asked me that in June, I'd have been like, "No way, Tom. You're lying. You're joking." Well, that just the math don't math. But well, math, and we're not joking. Why we're sitting here today and not watching our team play.
Well, it's interesting because it was around the same time that the Mets pitching just fell apart. What was working early on in the season with these reclamation projects with Griffin Canning,
Mm-hmm.
Kodai Senga. I know he missed a decent chunk of the beginning of the season. David Peterson was doing awesome. And things just went south. Clay Holmes, another name that I almost forgot to mention. Since then, the Mets posted a 37-54 record since June 13th. That is since 45-24. And I mentioned these specific records from these points in time because that's really when the page turned.
Mm-hmm.
The first 69 games, awesome. Mets had a deep winning streak going. And this is when I believe it was the 7-game losing streak started. It was the second Friday night in June. Mets lose. What went wrong? I know that is a loaded question, James, but I don't even know if you're able to pinpoint one thing. I'll let you go first, even if it's multiple things. What went wrong?
I think what went wrong, and there's multiple things. I think injury doesn't help. I think at some points egos got in the way. I think at times, not that I'm saying this is a bad thing, but I think also when they retired David Wright's number, everybody's like, oh, who's the next captain? Who's going to be the next captain? Yada, yada, yada. Oh, there's all this, there's all that. David's going to hand it off to Lindor. No, Lindor's just going to get it randomly. I think there's a lot of that also circulating in the clubhouse. I think amongst players, and that kind of, I would, feel like that would throw off a rhythm or whatnot, because it's like, well, no, I've been here. I'll use Nimmo, for example. Nimmo's been there pretty much his whole career. No, I deserve being captain. Not that I'm thinking Nimmo would be that guy, but I think that also affected on how they were playing. I also think, there was some moves that were done in base running, that I think we saw at times that Gary, Keith, and Ron even said it, or even, I saw it out of the third base coach. You should have sent the runner home on certain plays that you held the runner at third. It's like, what are you, even though it's one run, but one run adds up over time. The momentum swing of an inning changes, especially a baseball game, the game as a whole. They're down 5-0. You score that one run, you could go on a 3-run inning, or you can just, bat around. That one thing affects the pitching. I think also the pitching as a whole kind of started to slide past, who got injured, who went out there too early. We brought in who is the new reliever that we brought in that was supposed to be the setup man for Diaz, or vice versa?
You're talking about Ryan Helsley,
Yeah,
the guy who came out to Hell's Bells.
yeah, we got more of the hells instead of the bells out of him. I think, which at first was a great pickup, but I think we saw that towards the later half of the season, he wasn't producing what we needed him to produce.
Right.
Those are only a few points. I could ramble on for a lot longer, but I want to hear yours, Tom.
Yeah, well, I think when Frankie Montas, Sean Manaea both came back, and when they made Paul Blackburn a sixth starter, that ruined everything, right? You had a lot that was working between Peterson, Canning, Holmes, guys like that. Canning, unfortunately, had the season-ending injury. Kodai Senga started to struggle. Clay Holmes lost his touch a little bit. Even Peterson lost his touch around that mid-August time frame. And Manaea looked awful. Montas looked like he belonged in AAA. It got so bad the Mets sent down Senga to the minor leagues. I think Carlos Mendoza just did a terrible job at managing his pitching rotation once June kicked in, when he had tough decisions to make. I personally don't think I think he tried to shuffle things around too much. I think he overmanaged, quite frankly. And what I mean by that is, six guys starting for a little bit. And ultimately, when Montas came, he gave him too long of a leash. He gave him too long of a leash because of what he's done in the past. He used that, and it affected other guys in the rotation. Guys were out of order. The whole rotation just lost their confidence. And I think a lot of that is on Carlos Mendoza. We know Lindor went into a massive slump offensively wise. You mentioned Helsley at the trade deadline. I mean, I don't even think he was the worst acquisition at the deadline for the Mets. I thought he was the best on paper. Obviously, he was underwhelming, but I think Cedric Mullins was the worst acquisition they could have made.
Oh,
he was
a flop.
Awful. They brought him in for a bat, and he's not that good. His average was bad this year. I wasn't thrilled about that trade. It seemed like they really just focused on the bullpen when maybe they should have been focused on getting another starter, another high-end starter, not just a guy who is an above-average pitcher. We saw Reed Garrett struggle. Stanek regained his confidence back and pitched well, but it just wasn't good all in all. I think the top four were good for majority of the season in Soto, Alonso, Lindor, and Nimmo, but it just wasn't good enough. And the next question I have, the Mets announced that Carlos Mendoza will be returning as manager in 2026. Should he have been fired?
Yes, like you said earlier, it's like a loaded question, because it's like he did so well at managing the team early. He was pushing all those right buttons early on, which is great to see. And then the second half in June and the rest of the season, it was like he couldn't push the right button. He couldn't find that button, or he found it, and it led to a few wins, but not the clump wins that we needed. Um, I think that they bring him back, fine, okay. I I digested it. We'll we'll see. I think you need to put him on a short leash. You can't have him go if he has the same start that he had this past season, fine. We let him ride. But if it's what we saw towards the end of the season, in the start of the season, I think at that point it's like, okay, we ended the season on a bad note. We cannot Tom, I am going to play a little devil's advocate. We've started seasons terrible, and we acquire one or two guys, and we make it to the World Series. You know, I think also Mendoza. Do I miss the fiery aspect of Terry Collins? Yes, to rally his team and also, you know, go out there and be boisterous to the umps and whatnot. But I think if you're planning on bringing back a lot of those key players that are now testing the waters for free agency, that's why you kept him.
Yeah.
They know something that, okay, I'll use Alonso, for example. Alonso wants to use free agency, fine. If
Yeah.
they sign him back to a big deal, great, you have your first baseman.
Yeah.
You know, you try to keep that consistency. There's probably something else for that bigger picture, but if you can't sign some of those big guys back like Alonso, like Diaz, then it kind of walks the line of, well, what's this season going to shape up as?
Yeah.
Slash, in my eyes, he's just on a very short leash. You know,
Right. I
he
mean,
has a bad first week of the season. Erase that. You know, the first week of the season, but you have a bad first month and a half. You have to look at other options.
I was just about to say it could be a Willie Randolph type of situation next year where, when they did that back in, I think it was '07 with the interim Jerry Manuel,
Yep.
um, it could be an option. Now, here's my reasons. I absolutely think the Mets dropped the ball here. They should have fired both Mendoza and Stearns, but they refused to do neither. I think Stearns deserved the axe more than Mendoza. I get what Stearns is trying to build here.
Mm-hmm.
A defensive-minded GM trying to make the right moves, but just overspending for lackluster talent. But I will say it is what it is. I'll give Stearns another chance. But Mendoza specifically, tactical mismanagement, abusing the relief arms, overusing certain bullpen pitchers definitely were contributing factors to the team's
Mm-hmm.
struggles. The inability to halt the team's slide in June that honestly, James, it lasted the whole season. Yeah, sure, they went there on stretches where they won 4 or 5 games in a row, but when they took one step forward, they took 2 steps back again. They were unable to get back to the way that they were early on in the season, or even close to that. Another reason, his lack of accountability in post-game press conferences. He
Mm-hmm.
wasn't able to motivate the team to perform at a higher level. He was very vague, and he lacked solutions in the way he answered questions to reporters. Not meeting the expectations with the high payroll and star power. Absolutely. The situational awareness is another one. You got to really think about how fans and analysts viewed this.
Mm-hmm.
In critical games, by the way. It's just really, really sad that this is how it ended for Carlos Mendoza and the Mets this season. It's just really, really, really bad. Losing 5 year final 8 games, he should have been fired. Period.
Yeah.
They also, this is an insane stat. Under Carlos Mendoza, the Mets are 0-70 when they are trailing after 8 innings. 0
That's
and 70.
what? How do you what?
Not a single win. Not a single win.
how how does that make sense? You're trailing in games. Fine. You don't win 25% of them.
Yeah.
Okay. But you're not winning almost any of those games. At that point, then, I joke when I say this, just forfeit. Like,
James, They have 4 star hitters on this team. Some teams
Oh,
only have 1. The Reds made the playoffs over the Mets and had a payroll less than a third of what the Mets had this season, and they made the playoffs. I mean, Mendoza mismanaged this team so bad that pitchers lost their confidence that they had to call up not 1, not 2, 3
yeah,
pitchers from AAA in Nolan McLean, who was ready. I
he
will
was
say
ready.
that. He
Yep.
looks like a potential ace, which we'll get to in a couple minutes.
Hmm.
Brandon Sproat, who is not ready. I think he'll be ready next year. And Jonah Tong, who got bumped from AA to AAA and then gets called up to the big league roster 2 weeks later. What does that tell you? They are unable to develop talent. And this is where it falls on Stearns as well. They call talent up too soon.
Hmm.
Fans are quick to call them a bust, and they're wrong to do so, right? Jonah Tong, perfect example. Friday night, it was when DeGrom was in town, and they're
Hmm.
playing the Texas Rangers. Everybody's psyched. Oh, get your popcorn out. It's Jonah Tong. It's Jacob DeGrom. Jonah Tong didn't last through the first inning. He was pulled in the middle of the first inning.
Yep.
That is not on Jonah Tong. That is on Carlos Mendoza for putting him in that situation to fail. It is on David Stearns for, having them call this guy up way too soon. It is because of your lack of ability to make the proper signings in free agency, to really drop the ball, at the trade deadline. No moves were made for a starter.
No.
You put yourself in this situation. How did both of these guys get a free pass from Steve Cohen and company to come back this season? It is a real disgrace that Mendoza will be the manager in 2026. And I'll go ahead and say this right now. You're going to see the same shit in 2026. This team
Hmm.
isn't winning a World Series with the makeup of this roster. They're a very talented roster. But the personnel, the pitching is just not good enough. The back end of the lineup was not good enough.
No.
The Vientos underperformed this year.
Oh, highly.
Brett Beatty was the best one out of those 3 third basemen.
Yeah.
And that's saying something. And James, I want to ask you an honest question. Moving on from Mendoza here for a minute.
Yeah.
How would you grade Juan Soto's first year as a Met?
So I look at it 2 parts when I give him this grade. I look at the first month, 2 months. Everybody's like, he doesn't look happy. He looks uncomfortable. I don't think he was unhappy. I do think he was uncomfortable. You have to remember, he went from one borough to another borough. He didn't go from New York to Cali, New York to Philly, New York to Texas. New York is such an interesting and dynamic place to play, where you have a lot of those same fans, a Yankee fan, but also live in a household with Met fans. So you're getting almost those 2 fans going to the same game if they're going to see it as a family. And it's easy. You can easily take the subway to Citi Field and vice versa to Yankee Stadium. I think he was just uncomfortable. A new home, a little bigger ballpark than Yankee Stadium. I think, he had to get used to the fans, had to get used to a whole bunch of things. Then you look at it once he got comfortable and you saw the Juan Soto that we knew that was on the Yankees, that we saw going through MLB. I give him about a B plus. I think that's fair. I don't think it's anything like, it's not an A. I think if I said an A, I think you would probably kick me off the stream and be like, James, what are you doing? We're never having this conversation again. But I think a B plus is kind of a nice middle ground. He definitely has room to grow. I think he could be a leader of this team. I also think that, he feels comfortable
Yeah.
at Citi Field. You know, Earlier on, everybody's like, "Oh, it's the money," and I also thought that too. But then I saw like he's enjoying it. He's enjoyed being there, and I'm sure the last half of this season he took very hard on himself, or I would at least hope he would,
Mm-hmm.
because he was almost or is the face of the New York Mets, and is getting paid a lot of money,
Right.
where you need to step up. You need to be that guy. And I think with also having Lindor and the others around him, what making him feel comfortable when at home has helped him come to the player on the once he got comfortable. Do I wish he he was performing at a high level throughout the later half of the season.
He
Would he go
was.
50 for 50? So or 30 for 30?
Yeah, he had like the what was it, the 50, 40, 30 or
Yes,
something like
yes,
that. The
something like that. Where A, it's kind of unheard of, but B, at the same time, you you're showing up every game. You're putting your best foot out there.
40, 30.
And 40-30, he showed that why we paid him so much, why he can be here. Unfortunately, the cast around him wasn't able to produce.
Right. When I look at Juan Soto, did the Mets get their money's worth this year? No. But he had 43 homers, 105 RBIs. He had so many walks. He had more walks than strikeouts, and he's done that pretty much every year of his career. He is one of the few hitters in this league that controls the at bat. More often than not, the pitcher is in control. He controls the at bat.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good at determining strikes and balls. In my opinion, sometimes better than the umpires, but you can't blame it on that. Look, he struggled with runners on base. That was the big thing with him this season. A lot of his homers were solo home runs, unfortunately. His inability to knock the ball out with runners on were his downfall. So in that regard, I'm going to give Juan Soto a B+ for his first season as a Met. I think that this is a guy who is going to do better next season. I think he's going to be the face of this team for a very long time. I think the Mets have a chance to win a championship with him on this roster. However, it is only going to get done if you have the right guys in charge. And in my opinion, Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns are not the right guys. I know they brought him in here, but all in all, the mismanagement of the pitching, the lack of depth in the lineup. You have 3 third basemen who are all around the same level, which is concerning when you don't have a center fielder, you don't have a good DH. I think Soto got more comfortable. I think, he was good in divisional games. And he really is a good hitter. He is a very, very good hitter. He's one of the best players in the game for a reason. And I'm happy he's here in Queens. He's still I believe he's just turning 26, which is insane.
Wild to think about.
He'll be, what is it? I think he'll be 27 before the season starts. But yeah, Soto's a really good player. I'm not worried about him long term. He's the face of this team. That contract, sure, overpay, 100%. Not even close. We don't have to talk about that. We know that is way too much money for any player in the major leagues, right? But with the way the market is now, Soto wanted to be a Met because he sees where the Yankees will be in 5 years. And he sees where the Mets will be in 5 years. He wanted to get out of Judge's spotlight. He wants to be the guy. And he feels like he can do that in Queens. He can elevate this Mets team to the next level. And it's not a Mets versus Yankees debate. It's whether or not Juan Soto can be the face of a high market franchise. And I think he's proven that he can do it. Sure, sometimes he has a noodle of an arm in right field. But that's a flaw in his game that he's working on. In fact, he really only made one costly error the whole season. Again, when you're getting paid that much, you should make none.
Yeah.
But I thought he was pretty solid in right field for the most part. I was very impressed with the way he stole bases and his IQ. In the outfield, the way he ran towards some baseballs in games. He made some good diving outstretched plays, and it was an impressive first season for Juan Soto. If you take away the first month, the first month was rough. It was a transitional phase, but all in all, I'm happy he's a Met. Now let's talk about guys who might not be Mets next season, James. And the one that really worries me is our first baseman, one of the longest tenured Mets, in Pete Alonso, who is 30 years old. His numbers this season: batted .272, had 38 homers, 126 runs batted in. He had one heck of a season. Will they re-sign him?
I think he's going to be testing the market. I think he'll be asking for a lot of money because last year, if I recall correctly, we didn't really re-sign him right away. It took a while to get a deal done. I think there was some convincing on both parties' part on getting the deal done. I think that may be a case again this year since they didn't make the playoffs. I think he's itching to get on a playoff team, and I think he's itching for a ring. And I completely understand that because he does have some very good talent that he can bring to a team, if that's the only piece missing. But I also think that he he likes the fans. I think that, having Soto, I think Soto may be able to talk to him and be like, listen, yes, we didn't have a great second half of the season, but you're part of this team and look how far we can go within the next few years. Um, I think that will be huge. I would like to say they re-sign him, but I don't think a deal gets done right away. I also hope that the Mets don't lowball him, where he just shuts like I'm not even going to throw out dollar amounts because I'm not. Um, but if they lowball him too low, I think he's like, nope, that's it. I'm shutting the door. I'm not talking to the Mets. I'm going to find a team that's actually going to
Sure.
pay me respectfully.
I don't think Pete Alonso is going to be back. Do I want him back? 100% I want him back. But long term, I don't know if he is going to be here because you look at the makeup of this roster. There's a lot of good young prospects coming up, right? Jet Williams is a name that really is a promising player. Could Brett Beatty potentially play first base next year? I don't want to talk post Pete Alonso too much, but
Yeah.
I would offer him what he deserves. If you paid Juan Soto that much money, why can't you do the same with Pete? The difference here between Alonso and Soto this year is that Alonso more consistently hit with runners in scoring position. He's playing for a big contract, and he did it this season. He did an awesome job of doing that, quite frankly. And, I think it's a shame that it's come to this point. I really, really want Alonso to be back. But here's some stats, right? Soto was terrible at the beginning of the year. More recently, with Alonso, I remember I don't know what the number was at the end of the season, but out of his first 24 homers of the season, 17 of them came with men on base. Soto, his first 24 homers, 22 of them were solo homers. Only 2 of those homers came with men on base. The ability to hit with runners in scoring position and not in scoring position is imperative to a team's long-term success. Alonso has checked that box more than Juan Soto has, at least in the 2025 season. And that is why I think Alonso needs to be back with the Mets. Do I think he'll be back? No, I don't.
Yeah.
And I really hope I'm wrong. I would rather regret saying this in this video right now than Alonso walk. I do not want to be right at all, but I have seen this story before. I don't know. It's not looking too good. And what really hurt is if he goes cross town. Can't happen.
If he goes cross town, that's
not good. Not good at all.
Not good.
Let's talk about the next guy, Edwin Diaz, or should I say Diaz, 31 years old with a 1.63 ERA this season, 28 saves. His save numbers were down. More good than not this season. All-star material closer. I don't know what the makeup is. I think he has a player option officially. Okay. Let's take a look specifically because I want to get into specifics. So his player option is this year. Okay, so his contract isn't officially up, but he has an opt-out option. His official contract has him signed through 2028. However,
so it could be...
if they opt out, this is the opt-out. Next year, Edwin Diaz is owed $15.4 million. 2027, 15.4, and then 2028, 17.2. So I guess the question more here is, do you think Edwin opts in and comes back, or does he opt out and goes? I'll start. I think he stays. I think he stays 100% because as much as we might, poke fun at his inconsistencies and his streakiness, he is one of the best closers in baseball. He was one of our most consistent relievers, and for a guy who, yeah, sure, he's on the wrong side of 30, but you have to consider this. How many pitchers in the Mets bullpen are actually good? You can count on one hand, right? Maybe 50%? Maybe. This is after the trade deadline, by the way. Before, less than 50%.
Yeah.
Why change something with a certain player that is not broke? Do I think Diaz is a little overhyped? I do. Do I think that Timmy Trumpets is a little ridiculous? It's fun, sure, when you're there, but I do
Yeah.
think it's a little ridiculous. I think it's a little overplayed. But I think he needs to come back, and I think he will opt into his player option.
Yeah, I think he needs to come back because, it's what we said earlier in the video, but if you lock down that one position in a closer, as a fan, as a coach, as players on the team, that I know that we don't have to worry about our closer.
Yep.
95% of the time, we know what we're going to get out of Diaz. Yes, there may be inconsistency. It may nearly give us a stroke. It may nearly give us a heart attack watching it because he loads the bases with no outs and then magically strikes out the next three batters or whatnot, But I think he's also a fan favorite at times. Like, I do agree that the trumpets thing was cool last year, but I think it was overplayed this year, especially towards the end of the season when we weren't playing well. At least this is my personal opinion, where I was like, why are we even playing this song? Let's run out to the fields. Let's move on. We're already losing so bad. You're only there because we burned through our bullpen. Like, that's the only reason why you're in the game. I do think that he stays because I try to do the math. You said 28. He's signed through. So I think if I did that, he's like 33-ish, 34.
33, 34. Yep.
Yeah, which isn't terrible. I mean, especially since he's a closer. At that point, then you start wandering and looking elsewhere to fill that closing position. But if you want the Pete Alonso to stay, some of the other free agents to say, you may just have Diaz is somebody that we all know that should be staying. And also, we don't owe him money if he stays. We owe him money because he's still on the team. It's not we owe him money and now he plays somewhere else.
Yeah. Moving on here, the last two players we're going to talk about in this segment, Starling Marte and Jesse Winker, both of their contracts are up. Personally, I don't want either of these guys back. I think Winker has a little more value left than Marte. I think Marte's bat is solid, but it is not as good as it used to be. He will be 37 years old. I do not want to overpay for a 37-year-old bat. With Jesse Winker, he has been too injury prone to my liking. He is a really good player. When he plays, he gets on base, he draws walks, he gets hits. But I think you could upgrade at DH. I think you could upgrade. You have all this money. Yeah, you got to re-sign Alonso. That's priority number one. But after that, they should be looking for two things. A really good starter and an above-average DH at worst. I think those are the two top things for me personally. And then you can worry about the bullpen after that, just getting guys to fill it out and be consistent players. Will they bring one of these guys back? I think they're more likely to bring Winker back than Marte. But again, I think the injury concerns scare them.
Yeah, I actually, Tom, I would flip out. I would flip on who they would bring back. I think they would bring back Marte. I think he is a huge part in that bullpen, in that locker room, and I think he's able to help some of the young guys get refocused, but also as a senior member or a senior person that's been through the league for so long, somebody they look up to. Winker, I like, he brings a different style to the game, but I don't remember how many games he honestly played for us this year.
Not enough.
Exactly. And I think that, Marte is older, but he also is injury prone at times. But I think there's that senior leadership that the team may want to look for. And Winker, they can upgrade. Don't get me wrong. They can upgrade from both of them and find somebody really good. But I think they stick with Marte.
26 games, by the way, for Jesse Winker this season.
That's not enough. In my eyes, to bring back. If you're flipping between both of them.
That's fair. Very, very fair. So let's discuss now, what should the rotation look like next season? We know that Kodai Senga finished the season in the minor leagues. We know they called up 3 young prospects from AAA in Nolan McLean, Jonah Tong, and Brandon Sproat. We know they have Clay Holmes coming back, Sean Manaea likely coming back as well. They moved on from Paul Blackburn in the middle of the season, thank God. They still got to make a decision on what they're going to do with Senga if they, bring him back up to the majors to start the season. Obviously, David Peterson is still around. In your ideal world, what would your ideal Mets rotation look like?
I don't see Senga back on the roster.
Okay.
Or if he is, you talk to him and be like, you're in the bullpen, a long bullpen guy. Early on, I thought he was good, but just seeing how much he gets injury prone, but also not injury prone, but injured, but also like just the inconsistency just rattles my head. I do think that some of the younger guys they brought up earlier can be very good, but in time. They need the time to develop. I think that, you can't go from you're playing in AAA one day or single, you're playing solo in the minors, then 3 days later you're playing in the majors. Like what? I also think that McLean has a spot on this roster. I don't think he's number 1 because we're bringing back some of those guys that you just mentioned. I think he's a good 2 and 3. I think give him maybe midway through next season, he'll be a number 1 ace. And I think because we didn't rush him, and that's what they have to look at too. Look at this guy that we brought up. Yes, he did have some games and whatnot where it wasn't great, but this is what we should be mimicking for the rest of the Penn roster.
I agree. I don't know what this rotation will look like. I know Nolan McLean will be a part of it and one of the leading pitchers next season. I don't think he'll be our number 2 or number 3 starter to start. I think he should be number 2, honestly. I think they might throw out Peterson for opening day as long as they avoid arbitration with him. That's another guy you might have to re-sign to a somewhat chunky contract is Peterson. I think he's earned at least, 15 something million a year, 10 to 15 million a year. I think he's earned that. Maybe even more. I don't know what the current pitching market is in 2025, but all in all, I like the rotation to be Peterson and McLean 100%. I'm okay with giving Manaea one more chance.
Okay.
I'm okay with that. Montas, I'm done with. Clay Holmes is going to be back.
Yeah.
So that's 4 right there. I would look into Michael King for the Padres, acquired from the Yankees by the deadline. They used him as a reliever, but they said that King would like to potentially convert into a starter next season. I don't know if that's going to work. Looking at Jonah Tong and Brandon Sproat, I would prefer them start the season in AAA. I don't want them starting the 2026 season in the rotation. You also have to keep in mind, you want to send them down to play with prospects like Jet Williams and Carson Bench, guys like that who are going to be future Mets. I know they're infielders, but those guys playing together in AAA could definitely help them. As of right now, I think Senga is probably most likely to be number 5, but I do think they sign an arm. So I guess I'm slightly different from you on that. You're done with Senga. I'm not quite just yet. But man, it's just, I really wish David Stearns would just lay off signing the injury-prone pitchers. It's every year. They sign these injury-prone starters, and it is so frustrating. It's high upside guys that have underachieved in the major leagues. That's what he's banking on, and I don't like it at all. And what they do is they hand out these long-term contracts for top-end starters. For example, 3 years with Sean Manaea. I think that the market dictates that Stearns can get creative with his options, and it is a problem. Sometimes he's a little too creative in the way he thinks by, signing these reclamation projects. Um, but you could also make the argument the Yankees might be where the Mets are now if they didn't sign Max Fried this offseason. Remember, the Yankees signed Max Fried to an 8-year, $218 million contract. Ultimately, I think the Mets need to make a move similar to that in the offseason. But if they do that, Alonso is likely not back. So what do you value more? Your first baseman, who's been with the team for 7-8 years, or do you go out and get that top end starter? I don't think the Mets are a championship contender without both of those players together being the top end starter and Pete Alonso. You can't compete against teams like the Dodgers and the Phillies. They're going to have to find a way to do both. If I predict how it's going to happen, they are going to bank on Nolan McLean being that guy, that Max Fried type of starter, that potential ace, which leads me to ask you this. Is Nolan McLean a future ace? I know it's big to compare him to guys like, Jacob deGrom and Zach Wheeler, Noah Syndergaard when he was good, Matt Harvey. Do you see that in this guy?
I do. I think we got a small sample size of it this year. And I think that he came up at an unfortunate time for this team. But I do think not right away, but I do say come May, June, he's our go-to guy. I mean, I could be that wrong. He could be our guy come mid-April, which I hope I am, but I do think he is a future ace of this team.
I love it. Not too bold of a prediction, honestly, when you look at his stats. 8 starts with a 5-1 record, a WAR of 1.8, WHIP of 1.04, ERA was 2.06, pitched 48 innings, only gave up 13 runs, 11 earned, 57 strikeouts compared to just 16 walks. And you look at his game log of starts, James, his first ever start against Seattle, he was pretty good. He had those 4 walks, but he had 8 strikeouts, no runs, 2 hits. I'm going to read off to you his 2 starts that he made against the Phillies. August 27th against Philadelphia, 8 innings pitched, no runs, 4 hits, 6 strikeouts, no walks. Monday, September 8th against the Phillies, went 5 1/3, 1 run, 7 hits, 5 strikeouts, 3 walks. Again, not bad. You like to see him get the walks down a little bit, but that's okay. His final start of the season, not the best against the Cubs, but the Mets still wound up winning the game. 5 1/3, 5 runs, 5 hits, 11 strikeouts, 2 walks. He did give up 3 homers. He only gave up 4 homers on the season in the 8 starts that he did make. And then I'm looking, 3 of his 8 starts, he allowed no runs at all. That last start of the season against the Cubs, that was the only start where he gave up more than 2 earned runs.
Wow.
So, just saying.
A small sample size, but a small positive sample size.
Absolutely.
Especially against Philly twice.
Yeah, absolutely. James, is there anything you want to add here before we sign off? I know we talked about a lot. We talked about the disappointing ending to the season following the promising start. We talked about Mendoza and Stearns, Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, the pitching, Nolan McLean, some free agents. Is there anything that maybe we didn't hit on that you think we should note before we sign off?
No, I think we covered everything except me and you going to a game this year. I don't think we went to a Met game. I was like halfway through the season or towards August. I'm like, I don't think me and Tom went to a Met game like we've done in the past. So next year we'll have to do that.
Well, we did go out to watch one, but
we did.
We do have to get to at least 1 or 2 next season. So
I do think we have some problems we need to fix. I do think that we have some holes to fill. But I think this offseason should be a good one. Obviously, I know me and you are going to be concerned about our first baseman. But I also think, we have to see also what happens. I can say, and I think all of us know this from watching baseball, there's going to be a lot of free agents out there after the World Series is over.
Yep.
So, just watch that market. We may be able to pick somebody sneaky up without us really thinking he was on the radar, and look
Mhm.
what he turns into. So,
Absolutely. James, thank you so much for hopping on here with me to talk about this
of course,
2025 New York Mets post-mortem, a recap of the season, what went wrong, some bright spots here and there, and what the future looks like, more importantly, for the 2026 Mets and beyond. Make sure to go check us out at Review and Preview on all of our social media accounts and handles. We'll have that in the links and description below in this YouTube video. On behalf of James Montefusco, I am Tom Scabetta. Thank you all for watching. You've been watching this 2025 New York Mets postmortem here on Review and Preview Sports.